Be strong.
In the meantime, the channel again opens and old Dokkaebi appears there, saying Black Dokkaebi messed up the channel. He greets them all and asks them what they did when he was away. After some time, they go back to Huiwon and Hyunseong, and he gives them meat so that Huiwon recovers some health. Dokkaebi says he noticed that he had accomplished some amazing feats while he was away. He is talking to him through telepathy and says this is Dokkaebi communication, a mode of communication used by the Dokkaebi, and only Dokja can hear what he is saying when he is using this. However, it's a violation of the rules for him to use this skill on an incarnation such as himself. Dokja asks him if he was recalled because of him, and he replies that the management gave him a warning because he shut off his channel abruptly and left the advertisement running for too long. He exclaims he has made up his mind not to pay attention to minor things like that, and a few trips to the management center aren't a big deal for him. Dokkaebi asks him how he knew about the random item box, and he is also surprised that a remnant of his embarrassing past still exists. He is angry that the item box was there because of him and thinks he shouldn't be so greedy at that time. Huiwon calls him and says he seems to have obtained a lot of new items, and he replies that he has obtained a few. Hyunseong likes the shield and is notified that he has begun to show some loyalty towards him. Huiwon asks him if there is anything she can use and asks him about the sword. They ask him if they will share the meat with the others, and he replies that they will sell them for coins. Soon, they reach there, and they find people there who are a little agitated. 20 minutes remain until checkout, and they are notified to have the survival fee ready. 100 coins will be withdrawn daily at midnight as a survival fee, and they will die if they have insufficient funds to pay the survival fee. People ask each other to lend them some coins because they don't have enough coins left. They are ready to do anything in return for the coin, and Dokja and others are shocked to see their conditions. A woman asks the Cheoldu gang for her sister, who took part in the search team and hasn't returned yet, and they make fun of her and ask her to go and look for her. They ask her to prove that her sister went to the search party and ask her to volunteer herself and look for her sister. Huiwon gets angry to see them, and her attribute is about to blossom. Dokja thinks coins are powers in this world. Chin appears there and says he is glad to see them back. He says he has the most coins among them. He activates his skill Insight Level 2 to check how many coins he has, and Dokja is the one who has the most coins in Jumho Station. Everyone stares at him and asks him for the coins, and they ask him to give them at least 100 coins. Chin calls him and says he doesn't have enough coins to help all these poor people, but he has a lot of coins and asks him if he will let them die. Dokja is furious at Chin and thinks about 20 people have gathered around him, and if he shares his coins with them, then he will lose around 2,000 coins. But if he doesn't share his coins with them, then he will become a villain, and he wonders how many of them actually deserve his help right now. He thinks the theme of the first scenario was original sin, and they can't even take responsibility for their own lives when they took someone else's life to survive in the first scenario. Dokkaebi laughs and says this is turning out to be quite interesting because they have 10 minutes remaining. The constellation, secretive plotter, is waiting for him to make a decision, and he wonders what he should do now. He then asks the people if they want his coins, but asks them why he should give them coins. He thinks he will not play along with Chin's games anymore, while he laughs and says he knew he would say that. People ask them what he meant by this, and he says he has a lot of coins, so they ask him to share some with them. Chin says he has been like this since the moment he arrived, even selling the food he brought with him for coins, and says many people there could have survived if they hadn't bought that food from him. The people start shouting at him and asking him to return their coins while Songha and Hyunseong try to calm them. Chin calls him and says he will give him a last chance and asks him to return the coins to those people. He asks what he will do if he refuses, and he asks his men to attack them, saying things will get ugly quickly. They ask each other to kill him and get their coins back. One of them tries to attack him with his sword, but Dokja reacts in time and cuts his arms in just one slash. The man cries in pain and asks others for help, and Dokja calls them pathetic and asks them if they really blame him for this situation. He checks his character summary and finds out that his name is Min Sang-han and his personal attributes are shared. He observes that his stats are pretty high for ordinary gangsters and says they all know that what's happening right now has nothing to do with him. They are just doing this because they are scared of the gangsters, and they know exactly what's wrong and that their lives are at stake, but they are stronger than they are. They fear them because they have more coins and higher stats than them. Chin calls him and asks what he is trying to say, and Dokja asks the people why they have more coins and higher stats than them. He is notified that the incarnations around him are getting agitated, and a man asks Chin how he got so many coins. He replies that he sold many things. Dokja said when he arrived in Jameho a few days ago, 87 people were there, but right now there are only 50 people at the most. A man says this is because the monsters got them while they were on patrol, and Dokja calls them idiots and asks them to think about it for once. He asks them if they have observed why any of them haven't. The Chiolsu gang died because of the monsters. He also asks them to consider why they are always stronger when returning. The constellation, secretive plotter, nods in agreement with their reasoning. He also asks them to remember that she also said earlier that they will receive coins when they kill him. He asks them how Chin knows they will receive coins when they kill someone, and the constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is pulling his hair from excitement. Chin remembers how they killed so many innocent people to get coins. The people turn toward him and ask how he can do this while he tries to tell them that it's a lie. Dokkaebi calls them and says that there are only 7 minutes left until the scenario, and all the people now turn toward Chin and ask him why he did this to them. Dokja says if they have even an ounce of pride left inside them, they have to fight them and ask them to take back what was taken from them using their hands. The constellations of the pure good alignment have deemed Chin to be an evildoer, and Dokja says this is how this world works. All the people turn toward the Chiolsu gang and start beating them all, while a woman gives his child a hammer and asks him to do as she says. Hyunseong and Sangha are also helping the people, and Dokja uses his sword to hit them. Soon, they are in a bad condition and ask Dokja to help them. But he puts his sword in a man's mouth and says he already told them that he will get them. Huiwen also kills one of them and is notified that her requirement for the evolution of the attribute crouching figure has been met. Her attribute is blossoming, and her attribute has grown into a judge of evil. Dokja thinks the judge of evil is the most powerful out of the 3 judges, and she asks him to stay back for a moment. He is notified that he has contributed significantly to the blossoming of the attribute, crouching figure, and she asks him to stay back because they are all her targets. She then activates her personal skill, Time of Judgment, and the constellation of the pure good alignment agreeing with the use of this skill. She then starts the Time of Judgment and attacks them, while Chin wonders why they have the upper hand this time. He looks for his people and wonders where they are all, but is shocked to see Huiwen's power. She is killing his man brutally, one after the other, and everyone is staring at her shockingly. Soon he kills everyone and reaches Chin, who is seeing the corpses of his men. She glances toward Dokja, and he nods her head. Chin sees him and smiles, and is about to say something when Huiwen attacks him and kills him. They have killed all the people of the Chiolsu gang, and the constellations of the channel are experiencing intense ecstasy. Their time has finished, and their survival fees will now be collected, while surprisingly, Hyunseong and Gilyong are just watching Huiwen. She sits to the ground and is thinking about something. Dokja gives her a hand and asks her to get up, saying the scenario has only just begun. She gets up, and all of them are notified that 100 coins will be withdrawn daily at midnight as a survival fee. The survival fee will be collected until the second main scenario is cleared. Another notification appears there saying they have entered the second scenario area and have to find and move to the location where the scenario will be activated. After last night's incident, most of the survivors left Jumho Station. There are about 5 people left, excluding their group. Huiwen asks them if they are sure they won't come with them, but they refuse, saying they will go their separate ways and have some coins left. Dokja is sure they will get by since they were strong enough to survive last night, and Huiwen then asks them to go with them. Huiwen didn't ask if she could come with them since it was a given, and Huiwen Jian, the judge of evil, had become their new ally. Mr. Han has disappeared without a trace, and now it's time they left Jumho Station behind for their next destination. After some time, Huiwen punches him, gives him 1,500 coins, and says it's his share, and she should feel bad if she keeps all to herself and has already given everyone else their share. She was the one who earned the most coins last night, and Dokja says he wouldn't have done that if he was her. The constellation, demonic judge of fire, is delighted by his camaraderie, and the constellation, abyssal black, flame dragon, smiles wickedly because he is the one who gets the most coins. Dokkaebi gave him his share of the coins he was gifted this morning, and many coins were gifted because of the battle. He obtained 23,050 coins from Dokkaebi, hoping he would forget about that. Because of the earnings, he could increase his stats, and he spends 1,200 coins on stamina and 1,600 coins on strength, and his muscles are now overflowing with power. Moreover, he also spends 400 coins on agility and begins to feel more agile now. He has spent 4,400 coins in total, including some to increase his mana to keep using the White Star weapon aura. He can now increase his earnings by increasing the level of Dokkaebi's channel and drawing in more constellations. Their next destination will be the perfect stage for that. With this, they are notified that the second main scenario is activated, and they have to get through the tunnel and meet with the survivor of the first shelter zone. They are surprised to read about a shelter zone and wonder where it could be referred to. Huiwen says the next central shelter zone is Chungmuro Station. Many monsters are underground, and they get tired of fighting them all. She thought it would be a breeze since Chungmuro was only 3 stations away. Dokja thinks the tunnel was infested with ground rats as expected, and they have been fighting them off the entire way, so everyone must be tired. They stay at Dongguk University, and he asks everyone to stay there for a bit. The people who were in a hurry might have left something valuable behind. Hyunseong calls him and asks if they should rest when they get there, seeing as how they only have one more station to go. He replies that they don't know if they will be able to rest when they get there and thinks the Yaksu station they just departed from is full of ground rats and dead people. Looking at their wounds, it was obvious they didn't die fighting against ground rats, and it was most likely Junghyok's doing. They now know very well that monsters aren't the only things they need to watch out for in this world, and Hyunseong says he will search the area to see if there is anything they can use. Dokja thinks it sure is handy to have someone from the army at a time like this, and Sangha and Huiwon want to go to the bathroom. Hyunseong and Gilyong also want to go to the bathroom, and after some time, when they come out of it, Huiwon asks them about Dokja since he is not with them. Hyunseong says he wanted to look outside, and they are surprised by this because the air outside is poisonous. On the other side, he is running on the road while being notified that he is currently exposed to the poisonous fog. From the ready he has done, his desired place should be straight ahead from exit 6 of Dongguk University Station. Soon he reaches that place, which is the statue of the great monk Samyeon. A constellation wearing a robe is looking forward to his next action, and Hyunseong tells others he is going on a pilgrimage. He prays in front of the monk, and a constellation is delighted by his action and gifts him 100 coins. Dokkaebi is also watching him and wondering what he is trying to do now. Suddenly, he takes out his sword and slashes the monk, and Dokkaebi is also shocked by his action. The constellation wearing a robe is stunned by what he just did, and Dokkaebi asks him why he did this, but he ignores his question. He has destroyed an idol of a constellation, and this isn't just something that can be brushed off that easily. Dokja thinks all idols are sealed with the power of their respective constellations, and once their seal is broken, he can obtain skills or items that belong to the corresponding constellation. He needs the Great Monk's skill in order to enter Chungmuro, and he uses a shortcut that was introduced in TWSA because it takes too long to break the seal by normal means. Dokkaebi shouts at him and asks why he did this, but Dokja doesn't seem to listen to him. He is notified that a constellation wearing a robe is outraged by his atrocious act. He comes to others, and Hyunseong asks him about his pilgrimage and if he went to the cathedral. He replies to them that he has something to give him. He gives Huiwon a powerful relic that used to belong to a certain great man and is called the robe of the great monk Samyeon, which increases a sense of justice and will. He asks her if she has heard of a man called the great monk Samyeon, but she doesn't know him, and a constellation wearing a robe is shocked by what the incarnation Huiwon Jeong has said. Sangha replies she knew him when he studied Korean history, while he gives her the praying beads of the great monk, enhancing Mana's recovery. She states that he was a monk from the mid-Joseon dynasty, and he defended Korea during the Japanese invasion and won the battles of Noonpyeong and Unwandong. The acknowledgement of the character, Songhayu, touches a constellation wearing a robe. Dokja says these items are imbued with the great monk's power, and he offered a prayer at his status out of curiosity, and these items fell from the sky. He believes that the great monk Samyong has sent down these items to them for the future of their country Korea, and just like how he protected the country during the Japanese invasion, he may have sent them his relics to do the same now. His speech impresses them, and what he said has moved a constellation wearing a robe. Sanka says that seeing all that's happening around them, she guesses he can be right, and maybe the great monk Samyong could even be a constellation himself. A constellation wearing a robe has revealed his nickname, and the constellation, bald leader of the peasants' army, forgives his transgression. It is said that their fame directly influences the power and wealth of the constellation, and he acted recklessly, but no constellation would pass up the chance for their name to be praised like this. Huiwon likes the great monk, Samyong, and happily takes all praises in. Dokja has been gifted 100 coins. He asks others to get ready because they will be in Chungmuro soon, and thanks to Gilyong's interspecies communication, they haven't come across any ground rats yet. He asks them not to let their guards down, and they have about half a mile until they reach Chungmuro Station, and it should appear soon. They are all notified that a new sub-scenario has arrived, and Dokja asks everyone to stand back. The precise conditions of the sub-scenario are that they have to escape the illusory prison within the given time limit, and they wonder what the imaginary prison can be. Suddenly, an illusion is created around them, and they all feel sick. They can't see each other, and Huiwen calls him and asks if he is there because something doesn't feel right. He is shocked to see his mother there, and she asks him if he has seen anything. He understands the situation and activates his personal skill, the fourth wall, and has become immune to the effects of illusory prison due to his skill. In fact, illusory prison is a zone that triggers his trauma to drive him insane. He thinks even Young Hyuk-yu had a difficult time there, and this is the most dangerous obstacle a regressor can face. He asks everyone to calm themselves and take deep breaths. The constellation, Secretive Plotter, is impressed by his mental fortitude, but a curious constellation is sad that they didn't get to peek into his past. All of them are trapped in their illusionary world of fear, and Dokja thinks it is too late for him to save them. Sangha seems conscious because of her praying beads of the great monk Samyong, and it looks like their effect protected her. He asks her to cover her for a bit while he destroys this zone. He destroyed the great monk's status to obtain this skill so they could clear this sub-scenario. He asks Sangha to be prepared and activates his personal skill, Dispel Evil Level 1, and this skill dismantles the illusory prison. He breaks the barrier, but Hyunseong is still in his illusion and says he is a soldier of the Army of the Republic of Korea with a duty of faithfully serving their nation and citizens. Gilyon is crying loudly and is calling his mother. Dokja calls them and asks them to get a hold of themselves, but Huiwen approaches him and tries to attack. Her eyes turned red, and she was ready to kill them all. Red eyes are a sign of demon slaying, so he gives her the robe of the great monk Samyong, but he guesses it is useless. He attacks her neck, makes her unconscious, and asks Sangha to take care of her. They are notified that the condition of the sub-scenario has been fulfilled, and they all receive 300 coins. He asks them not to let their guard down because the fight is not over yet. Tier 8, Ghost Species Spectre, appears in front of them, and Hyunseong wakes up shouting his name loudly. He feels a severe headache and asks them what is happening there and how long he was out. In the meantime, Dokja takes up a Spectre Spirit Stone, a rare spirit stone that can be obtained from the remains of specters. He tells Hyunseong that they stumbled upon monsters that created an illusory prison and defeated them all, so they should be okay. Surprisingly, he asked them if Dokja and Sangha had beaten all the species, but she said it was mostly Dokja. He tells them their attacks were psychic primarily, so it wasn't too bad. Hyunseong thanks him and says they are out of the woods now, and they ask Gilyong to get rest, but he gets up, saying his head hurts. Dokaj remembers he was talking about his mother and thinks he had the most traumatic experience. Gilyong hugs him and starts crying. Sangha shows them the lights and says they have almost made their way, and Dokja thinks their group isn't ready for a fight at the moment and wonders if it is okay for them to go ahead. Suddenly, a girl appears there and asks who they are, and if they don't know that these hunting grounds belong to them. They remember the girl from the video of the first day and recognize that she killed most of her classmates. She is the sole survivor of Tipung Girls' High School Jihai Lee. She is surprised by the stone in his hand and asks them if they have arrived there after defeating the specters. Dokja knew her well because she was also one of the main characters of TWSA. Jihai asks him how to defeat them because only the master knows how. After killing her closest friend, Dokja checks her character profile and discovers she has become a scarred sword demon. Her supporting constellation of god of naval warfare is no different from the story, and the constellation, bald leader of the peasants' army, is moved about being reunited with an old friend. She is now Naval Commander Ji-Hai Lee, so Young-hyuk rushed straight to Chungmuro. She is a crucial character in the battle ahead. She then asks them to follow her, and she will take them to the station, and they will start following her. The scenario again appears in front of them, saying they must get through the tunnel and meet with the survivor of the first shelter zone. They are notified that the encounter has been completed in the main scenario number 2, and rewards will be calculated. Everyone is shocked to see that they have pointed their red fire guns toward Gilyoung, and Dokja asks Songha to look after Huiwon for him. He also enters the red zone area, and the man asks him if he is the kid's guardian. He asks him to pay him 500 coins instead of Gilyoung, and Dokja thinks it is interesting that he is demanding 500 coins just to set foot on his land. At the same time, Ji-Hai goes to Young-hyuk, and he is the reason he has let those scum run rampant. It is revealed that the 10 evils appear in different chapters and have other ranks depending on the round Young-hyuk is in. They are the main villain in the world of TWSA, and Pildu Gong, also known as the Armament Lord of Chungmuro, is one of the 10 evils. As expected, his room is larger than the rest of the house, and this entire area must be Pildu Gong's green zone. Dokja asks him why he is collecting coins from people, and if Chungmuro Station is not a public place. He replies that it was a public place 8 days ago, but not anymore. He replies that he will pay the coins but only Pildogong in person because this man is not him. He checks his character profile and finds out that his name is Juncheol Kim, and that these men are landlords who used to own most of Chungmuro, but now they are just Pildogong's henchmen, the landlord coalition. He calls Pildo and asks him where he is, while the others are shocked at how he knows about this. He enters the area and urges Pildo to come out and collect his coins. As soon as he enters the area, the red fire guns are directed toward him, and a man from behind asks him to stop right there. He warns him, saying that he will be dead if he takes another step. He exclaims that he hasn't seen him around there before, and says he has got quite the nerve. Dokja thinks he must be Pildo Gong, the Armament Lord, and asks why he should be nervous when he is just there to do what needs to be done. He is notified that Pildo Gong has begun to take an interest in him. He checks his character profile and discovers that he already has 2 personal attributes, and his mana is level 19. This is expected of someone who would become one of the 10 evils. He asks Dokja what business he has with him because it doesn't seem he is just there to pay him. He wonders if he should make a deal with him or just crush him right there and now. Pildo observes his intention of holding the sword and says he better not have any crazy idea if he knows what he means. Dokja observes the situation, looks at his companions, and asks what a tenant wants from a landlord. He exclaims that he wants a room and asks him to let him and his friends stay in his green zone. Pildo refuses, saying they don't take tenants who aren't a part of the landlord coalition unless they want to pay them 500 coins each day. Dokja says they can't afford that, but he can pay him in intel, and he is shocked when he takes Young-hyuk's name. He gets angry about his name and asks if he is talking about the man who caused an uproar a while back. He asks him how he knows about this. Dokja thinks in the original story that Young-hyuk should be in an all-out war against the landlord coalition right now, and Pildo asks him how he knows about Young-hyuk. Dokja replies he is his companion, and they have been through life and death on their own, which means he is his close friend. Pildo Gong activates the skill Calculate Profit Level 2 and asks Dokja not to underestimate him if he tries to con him. From his experience, people like him always run off without paying their rent, and Dokja turns back, saying it's his loss. Pildo calls him from behind and asks him to pay him 500 coins. He asks them how much they must pay and replies that they must pay 1,000 coins, 500 for each. He tries to argue with him, but is not ready to make any concession and warns him about the fire gun. It emits radiation. Dokja asks Gilyoung to run toward the crowd, and an explosion occurs. Dokja is shocked to see that Hyunseong saves him from the fire using his shield and says he can't hold it much longer. He observes the situation where Huiwen is still passed out, and someone might end up dead if they start fighting right now. There is nothing to gain for them if they continue this fight, and he asks Mr. Pildo to hold on for a second and says it's not a wise decision for him to be fighting them right now. He warns him, saying he will die exactly where he is sitting. In the meantime, Young-hyuk and Ji-hae appear there, and she tells him about Dokja, that he is the man who claimed to be a friend of his. Dokja thinks if there is nothing for them to gain, he should at least make them lose something. Young-hyuk recognizes him and is shocked to see him. He is notified that he has become agitated and greets him happily. He activates level 2 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint to read his mind. He asks him about how he is, and it looks like he has been doing good, while he is shocked to see him alive. He exclaims that the people don't seem to believe that they are friends and think he knows Young-hyuk very well, and that he may kill people off like insects, but he always keeps his promises. A few constellations are looking forward to the incarnation, Young-hyuk's reply, and the constellation Demonic Judge of Fire is carefully watching to see if the incarnation Young-hyuk keeps his word. He also asks him to let his people use the toilet while he just stares at him. After some time, he follows Young-hyuk and says he is lucky to have such a great companion like him. He says it is perfect to see him. A few moments earlier, he asked him how he managed to survive, and long story short, Young-hyuk never acknowledged him as his companion. Instead, he answered by silently pointing his blade at Pildo Gong. Pildo doesn't seem to want any bloodshed, so he lets them go for the time being. Dokja asks him if he wants him to die, but he replies he doesn't care that much. He again tried to check his character profile. Still, it showed too much information about this character, and the system converted the character profile to a character summary. He thinks he never saw it when he read the novel, but now he wants to open the full version of Young-hyuk's character profile and understand how extraordinary he is. He may even be more potent than he was during his third round in the novel, which means he is taking more risks. He wonders what he is scheming when it's only his third round. Young-hyuk asks him if he has something to ask or tell him, and he replies that he is just admiring that ugly mug of his. Young-hyuk thinks he is as determined as he remembers being, but he's starting to get on his nerves, so he wonders if he should kill him. After some time, Huiwon becomes conscious, and Young-hyuk says he has made new companions. Young-hyuk is a little disappointed in him and wonders why this is. He also activates his skill, Eye of the Sage, level 8. He thinks he left Hyunseong with him, but he is disappointed that he is weak. Dokja thinks Hyunseong would have been even stronger if he had accompanied Young-hyuk, but still, he is just an ordinary reader who is lucky enough to know the future. Now, he is surprised to see someone in the group, and it is difficult for him to understand whom he is looking for, because they are standing in a group, so it's difficult to tell. He wants to ask him, but then he will find out that he is reading his thoughts. In the meantime, Huiwen observes he is staring at her and asks what he is looking at, and he thinks if he should kill her. Dokja calls him and asks why he left Pildo Gong alone, but he says if he is a real prophet, then he should know about this. Dokja says prophets don't know everything they know, and Young-hyuk has activated the lay detection skill to check whether he is lying. He then says the level of his future vision skill must not be high enough, and tells him that he needs Pildo Gong alive. He knows that Young-hyuk needs him for a future scenario, but he needs only Pildo, not his entire gang. He thought it was more of his style to keep things simple, and asked why he was letting them run rampant. Young-hyuk is annoyed by him and says he is a busy man and will never understand, but Dokja stops him and says this isn't something he can ignore so easily. He says if he doesn't do something, then the people in Chungmuro will be killed, but Young-hyuk says it doesn't concern him at all. Dokja asks if he can punch him only once, and Young-hyuk asks if he has the confidence to do this. He activates the skill Tiger God Aura, level 5, and asks Ji-hae to follow him. After some time, they are notified that 1 hour and 30 minutes remain until the third scenario is activated, and Dokja thinks it will last precisely 1 week. Young-hyuk is probably planning to get something he wants during that time, and the constellation, bald leader of the peasants' army, is angered by the suffering of the ordinary people. Dokja thinks he can't let him have his way, while the constellations wonder what he is thinking now. He abuses Young-hyuk, and the constellations are pleased by his words and gift him 100 coins. Hwee comes to him and asks if he is a little scared when talking to Young-hyuk. He laughs and says he is worried about what to do with Pildogong and his gang and thinks he didn't change the subject because he was scared, but Pildo is more of a problem right now than Young-hyuk. From what he has heard, they claim ownership over public spaces and ask people for rent, but in order to complete the third scenario, they need Pildogong's help. Hwee angrily moves and says she will kill him, but Dokja stops her and thinks he should get them better weapons. Hwee says they can beat them if they join forces, and she activates the skill, the Time of Judgment, but the constellations of the pure good alignment remain silent against Hwee Jeong's request. She wondered about what was happening, or if the skill was broken. Dokja thinks the Time of Judgment, a personal skill that belongs to the Judge of Evil, is an all-powerful buff skill that is ridiculously overpowered. Still, the point is that it only works when the intended target is an evildoer. She wonders why the skill is not activating and says Pildogong and his gang are definitely evil, but Dokja says that's only from their perspective. He is saying that the standards of morality humans abide by may differ from those of the constellations. In most cases, justice is just something that is agreed upon by the majority, but he says there may be a way. He says it won't be easy, but they might be able to defeat him. They have to lure Pildogong out of his militarized zone. It is said that his stigma militarized zone is an optimal defense skill, but it will only work in specific areas that he has designated. His turrets will be useless if he leaves his area of effect, but it won't be easy to lure him out. He has blankets, food, and even a chamber pot, and has practically staged a sit-in. Moreover, his place is the most enormous room in Chungmuro. They notified that there is 1 hour remaining until the third scenario is activated, and he says they will worry about Pildo later, but now they should also be looking for a room. In the meantime, Dokkaebi appears there and says they will begin the third day of the main scenario, and he can see some new faces there. Their attribute windows appear in front of them, showing the third scenario, and they have to occupy a green zone in the station and survive the monsters that emerge each night at midnight. The scenario will last for 7 days. 1 hour remains until the third scenario is activated, and Dokkaebi says the rules are simple. They must occupy a green zone before anyone else. They can also steal someone else's green zone and ask them to hurry because they will be in deep trouble if they can't find their own green zone by midnight. People get mad and start killing each other for the sake of the green zone. Sangha is scared to see the situation and asks if they really have to fight like that, but Dokja says there won't be a need to, and they just need to find a room that can hold them all. It is said that the green zones vary in size and some houses only have one person, while others, like the one Pildogong is occupying, can hold up to 70 people. He asks others to split and find a room and asks Hyunseong and Sangha to team up while Hwee and Gilyong can go together. He thinks they might be in big trouble if none of them have found a room 20 minutes before the scenario starts. He asks them to meet back there, and they all leave to search for the room. But he knows they won't be able to find a room because there are no rooms left in Chungmuro. It will leave them with only one option, but he wonders if they can take innocent lives for the sake of saving themselves. He sits quietly while only 30 minutes remain until the third scenario begins, but he sits quietly watching his mobile. Dokkaebi appears there and asks what he is doing there, and the constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, wonders what he is up to. Suddenly, he realizes it won't do him any good to let Dokkaebi or the constellations know he is a TWSA reader. Dokkaebi asks him what he is doing by staring at a blank screen and boring the constellations to death. He is surprised they can't see the story but a blank screen, and Dokkaebi says he will die if he just sits there like that. He realizes that the constellations and the Dokkaebi, who have the highest administrative power, must not be able to see anything on his screen. He wonders how powerful the author who sent him this is. In the meantime, the boy from earlier kills a man from the green zone and warns Dokja not to come any closer to him. Dokja asks him not to worry because he won't steal his spot, and Jihai appears behind him and says he seems quite laid back. Dokja says she seems as laid back as he is, and she replies that no one will dare to come near her room because they know very well what will happen to them if they do. Dokja thinks the only people who could fight against Jihai there would be the Landlord Coalition or Younghyuk. Jihai says she doesn't want him to die because she was impressed by how he stood up to Master, and Dokja assures her that he won't die. He says they don't necessarily have to find a room to survive the night, and she asks him if he is as strong as her master. Meanwhile, Younghyuk appears there and asks her to return to her room. She asks Dokja if he will fight the monsters. If he tries this, he and his team will die, and Dokja says they must see about that. Younghyuk leaves him there, and Huiwin and other team members appear there and tell him they demand 2,000 coins per night. They seem disappointed and say to him that they couldn't find a room, and the upstairs people demanded high rent. Hyoseong asks him if he found anything, but he replies he didn't. He then says they now have two options, and the first option, in which they all live, is the easier of the two. Meanwhile, the second option will be arduous, and one of them could even end up dying. Hyeonseong says if there is a chance for them to survive, they should go with the first option, and Sangha asks him to tell them about the first option. He points toward the stairs and says the first option is over there. 5 people are in the green zone, but their stats aren't very high, and just a few of them will be enough to kill them. They are shocked to hear that the first option is to kill them and take their place. Gilyoung says he is up for it as long as he is willing to do it. He comes forward, saying he is not scared and will do it, and Huiwin says they already thought of that. Dokja says they probably killed others to occupy that room as well, and if they carry on like this, then they won't be able to complete future scenarios. Huiwin calls him and says she killed someone in Jumho Station, and she did so out of her volition, and she doesn't regret it. However, just because she killed someone doesn't mean she enjoys doing it. She says she doesn't want to become a monster, and Hyeonseong calls him and asks if he wants to hear the second option. He understands the situation and says they will go with the second option. Huiwin gets happy and asks why he was always testing them, and he replies that he wasn't trying to test them. He says to Gilyoung that he would have respected his choice, but now that they have all agreed on the second option, it doesn't matter which path he chose. He requests them to follow his instructions and do exactly what he says. If they fail, they all will die. 5 minutes remain until the third scenario begins and looks toward a direction from where the monsters are likely to spawn. They will rampage through the station and make their way up to the ground floor, but they can't fight them because if they do, they all die. They need to split up for this plan to work, so they make 2 teams. Hyeonseong, Sangha, and Huiwon tells them that they have to trust him 100%. When the monsters spawn, he wants them to run towards them, and when they appear there, he commands them to run now. They follow his instructions and do the same as he just said to them. They are first surprised that he wants them to run toward the monsters, not toward the Dongguk University station. Dokja says they have to run straight for them and start running after they have spawned. He also asks them to search the wall to the left and right before they run into them right after the third main scenario is activated. They follow his direction, and Sangha finds the green wall on the left side. She tries to touch the wall while the monsters reach them, and is notified that somebody has activated Chungmuro Station's secret area, and the hidden area, the refuge of the brave, has been activated. They are saved from the monsters, but Sangha is shocked that Hyeonseong is fighting them because they have captured him. It is revealed that there are a few hidden green zones in the third scenario, and this green zone can occupy only 3 persons. Hyeonseong, Huiwon, and Sangha enter the green zone and are now worried about Dokja and Gilyoung. The monsters appear on certain surfaces each round and can only be seen after the scenario has been activated, and they never thought that green zones were hidden in walls. However, there were the ones who jumped to the conclusion that green zones were rooms, and now they are surrounded by many monsters. Dokja thinks there are only 2 hidden green zones on line number 3, and the second one should be somewhere up ahead. A boy has occupied a green zone, and Dokja wants to steal that room over there. Dokkaebi laughs, says this has turned out interesting, and asks if they should bring on the penalty. The scenario penalty has been applied, and the partial green zones in the area have been deactivated. The monsters attack the people and start killing them all. Dokja thinks Yoonhyuk is a monster since he has survived an onslaught like this, even for a day. He wonders if he would do the same if he spent every coin he had on raising his stats. Gilyoung tries to call him, but he replies he can't listen to him because he is busy, but he asks him to leave him behind. Dokja is shocked at what he said, and Gilyoung asks him why he is going to help them. He says he would have done much better if he had been alone. Dokja thinks he doesn't know the answer to that himself, but one thing he can say for sure is that he can't leave them behind. He says to Gilyoung that it would be easier for him to do everything alone and keep all the earnings for himself. He lifts him and says he once read a novel that went to shit because the protagonist did that, and he definitely means to be a protagonist. He will never be a hero or a savior, but he won't let Gilyoung die, at least not today. He asks him to hold him tightly, and he checks for his list of bookmarked characters. He activates his bookmark number 1 and fights them all bravely. After a while, he finds a green zone area and runs toward it, thinking they are almost there. He jumps from the ground above the monsters, but is shocked that the area can occupy only one person because Yoonhyuk is already there. He reaches near him, calls him, and asks him to move aside because he knows that he can survive without that room. Yoonhyuk refuses by saying he doesn't want to fight anymore. He is shocked at how Yoonhyuk knows about this area when it's only his 3rd round, and from what he remembers, the first time he used a secret green zone was in his 4th round. He then asks him to take this kid, and Yoonhyuk asks him to give him the child. He grabs him by the shoulder while he tries to run for Dokja, but Yoonhyuk doesn't let him do this. He is now alone fighting the monsters, and the constellation, bald leader of the peasants' army, closes his eyes. Yoonhyuk calls him and says he has already told him that he will die. But he smiles at him and says he will not die while all the monsters occupy him, and Gilyoung shouts at others to help him. The main scenario again appears in front of them, in which they must survive the monsters that appear every midnight. Yoonhyuk is shocked to see that he just swallowed the thing he had in his hand right before he was attacked. He wonders if he knew what it was, and even if he did, then he wouldn't be able to use it. He chews the spirit stone, and all the monsters occupy him. After a while, he is notified that illusory prison has been activated. He has now become a ghost species. After some time, he wakes up and wonders where he is, and when he finds a woman standing near a dead body. He is notified that the effect of the 4th wall has been diminished temporarily due to the increased immersion, and he is shocked at his memory. He thinks it must be anything but not this memory and must resist this. He grabs his head badly and thinks some memories are not meant to be revisited. He obtained the Spectre's Spirit Stone on his way to Chungmuro Station. When consumed, this item turns him into a ghost species temporarily so that he can become invisible to monsters. But as a cost, it amplifies the traumas buried deep within the user's memory. He doesn't want to have to resort to this and thinks his 4th wall is so overpowered, and he has managed to survive thanks to the skill. If anyone else tried this, they would have been driven mad, and now he has to wait for the effects of the 4th wall to return. Suddenly, a girl appears behind him and asks if he is Yoonhyuk, and he wonders if the trauma has been triggered again. But she is a foreigner with blonder hair and is someone he doesn't know, and wonders if she is the one he read in the novel. She asks him about who he is, and he activates his personal skills and tries to check her character profile. However, the character profile has penetrated the mental barrier because she uses level 6 mental barrier skills. He is notified that there is too much information about this character and turns the information into a character summary. He discovers that she can enter people's consciousness free from spatial limitations and is a character of TWSA who can see the future and plans to build a new one through her visions. She is the prophet named Anna Croft, and she asks him how he knows about her. He replies that he is also a prophet, and she checked the lie detection skill level 7, and it detected that he is lying. He thinks the skill doesn't work on a real prophet, and she again asks him about who he is. He thinks she must have noticed his presence because the effects of the fourth wall were reduced, and if the skill actually does what he thinks it does. He is a little disappointed and wonders what he should do, and asks him if she doesn't really know who he is. Dokja asks her if she received the ichthyosaur nucleus he sent her, and if she didn't use the nucleus's magic power to implant the archdemon's eyeball into his eye. She asks him if he is the one who requested broken faith through the auction house. He thinks she was lucky enough to have been gifted an item that is worth 1 million coins. She comes toward him, and he is notified that the effects of the fourth wall skill have slowly begun to return. She is shocked at why she can't see anything, and Dokja says they will meet again, but she has to wait for him until then. In the meantime, the effects of the fourth wall have wholly returned, and now he has become immune to the effects of illusory prison due to his skill. He thinks he has his hands full already, then he bumps into Anna Croft, which is not good, and he wonders how much time has passed. He hopes that everyone is okay now, wonders if the third scenario is still on the way, and wonders if ground rats will still surround him. He activates his personal skill, Dispel Evil level 1, and when he comes back, they are shocked and happy to see him back alive. He gets up and asks them about the scenario, and they tell him that the scenario is over and they have made it. He looks toward many dead bodies there, and he tells them that they shouldn't be celebrating yet because they only survived for 1 day. Hyunseong says they haven't slept a wink, and it's 8:30 in the morning, and about 30 minutes have passed since the scenario's end. He asks them about Gilyong, and they direct them toward Yoonghyuk, who is standing with Gilyong. He can't hear their conversation now, and Yoonghyuk asks Gilyong to accompany him, but he refuses his offer. He says if he comes with him, he will become stronger much faster than he does with him, but Gilyong says he is still not going with him. Dokja thinks Gilyong is just an idiot child because he misses a good offer and activates level 2 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint. Dokja wants to say something to Yoonghyuk, but he has no strength to say anything. Gilyong observes his presence and rushes toward him happily. Yoonghyuk thinks there is no more time to waste, and he needs to work on tonight's plans. Dokja reads his mind and wonders what plans he is thinking of, and he wants to think more, but he doesn't have strength. He gets unconscious, and Hyunseong asks Gilyong to let him sleep. The main scenario again appears there. With that, the third day of the scenario completes with this. After some time, when he wakes up, he finds Dokkaebi at his side, who is annoyed by his sleep. Huiwon is happy to see that he is finally waking up. He again lays down to the ground, and Hyunseong tells him that the orderly officer will conduct today's roll call. He is still feeling off and wonders why something is feeling a little off. He is still in a trauma, and the constellation, demonic judge of fire, is sympathetic towards his trauma. A few constellations also show interest in his past, and they want to know about his mother. Moreover, the constellation has gifted him 1,800 coins. Dokja thinks those constellations had a peek into his past, and he is notified that he has endured a night in Chungmuro without a green zone. He has become the second player in Chungmuro to have earned the Endless Dawn achievement and has received 1,000 coins for his achievements. He now has 22,650 coins. He is satisfied that he now has enough coins, and Huiwon asks him what the plans are for tonight, and they can do what they did yesterday. Dokja says that was a one-time thing, and unfortunately TWSA didn't have any information on where the hidden green zones would spawn on the fourth day. He thinks to put an end to the third scenario, and he asks others to go and hunt down the landlords. He wakes Hyunseong, who dozed off momentarily, and asks him if he has rested well. He tells him that he has been talking in his sleep, calling himself Private Hyunseong Lee, and he says it's because of his traumas from his early years in the military. Dokja says he is supposed to be a commissioner officer, and Hyunseong clarifies that he was promoted near the end of his compulsory service. He doubts anyone really enjoys military service as Hyunseong does and thinks there was no mention of Hyunseong's military service in TWSA. Still, he is sure it wasn't easy for him. Dokja says he is relieved that he is on their side, and he feels reassured to have someone like him at the helm and feels so much protected. Hyunseong is happy to hear this appreciation, and he then comes to Huiwon and asks her to do what he just did. She asks him why he is praising him, and he replies that it is to help Hyunseong. He seems rather down as a late, and he may feel better if they cheer him on a little. According to TWSA, Hyunseong's attributes should have blossomed while defending everyone from the Cheoldu gang in Jumho Station. But in the current situation, it was Huiwon who underwent that transition instead, and he thinks that he had to prepare himself since Young-hyuk seems to be up to something, and he needs to take care of Pildogong as well. He needs to have Hyunseong blossom his attribute, thinking it should be something like the well-done approach. He is notified that Hyunseong Lee is beginning to feel responsible, and Sangha says she also wants Hyunseong to return to his old self. Huiwon asks him if his supporting constellation is the one-eyed fortune teller, but he doesn't know about it. Huiwon is surprised that he doesn't know about Gunjai, and Dokja says he has a skill that helps him understand people better. However, he asks them to look after Hyoseon, and they have to take turns cheering him on. They name it Dokja's intermission scenario, well done, and their first challenger is Huiwon, who goes to cheer Hyunseong up. She appreciates him, saying his attitude is unchanging, and he is like a large pine tree. He tells her that his favorite song in the military was Green Pine Tree. Huiwon rudely says she never asked him about his favorite song, which makes him a little sullen. Dokja is disappointed by her, and their second challenger is Sangha. She says she has never met someone as driven by justice as he is. She is notified that Hyoseong begins to ponder what justice is. She thanks Sangha for the appreciation. They are happy she did well. The third challenger is Gilyong Lee. He praises his muscles and body, increasing his self-esteem. Dokja thinks he is so simple, but thanks to that, he guesses everything is going as planned. There is a notification that Hyunseong is awaiting the chance for his attribute to blossom, and Dokja appreciates Gilyong and asks if he looked into what he asked for. He replies that she is on the first basement floor and leaves them, saying he will be right back. He is going to meet Jihai and thinks he will go talent scouting. He goes to Pildogong's green zone, and his man says he has got some nerves to show his face around there again. They have heard they survived the night without a room and say Young-hyuk must have helped him. Dokja observes something and leaves, ignoring them, and a man calls him and asks if it isn't hard living as Young-hyuk's lackey. They offer him to join them, and Pildo says he will think about letting him in, but he has to bring his companion girls along too. He observes the situation and finds out that there are 11 altogether, and he tells the man that he will think about the offer. He believes there is much less room available, and he might just barely be able to reach the basement's first floor. Suddenly, Jihai appears from behind, tries to attack him, and says she is a little disappointed by him. Dokja wondered when she got behind him, and he couldn't sense her at all. He wondered if she used the ghost walk skill to sneak behind him. She asks him if he knows what will happen if he makes a deal with Pildogong. She asks him why he didn't kill them all last night, and Dokja asks her to put her sword down because he has come there to talk. She is surprised that he came to see him, but suddenly she disappears behind him and reaches the other side. She then asks him what he wants from her, and Dokja thinks she is faster than he expected. He asks her why she is standing over there, and she replies that her master told her to guard the place, and she can't let anyone through, not even him. Dokja wonders if this is what Young-hyo has been up to, and it looks like he will have to hurry things up. Dokja says he wants her help, and he is going to take out Pildo and his goons today. Jijai seems excited to hear this, and his understanding of Jihai has increased. After some time, when he returns, Huiwen asks if she is willing to help them, and Dokja thinks she does have a bit of a temper, but she doesn't seem that cold-blooded. He tells her that there is way that they can only achieve if they help him, and if she doesn't help, then most of the people there will end up dead. He also tells her that he saw a broadcast of her first scenario in the subway, and it was of her killing her classmates. He is sure that wasn't what she wanted, but she angrily asks him what he knows about her. Dokja says he knows nothing and is just saying what comes to his mind, and if she doesn't help him today, she will regret it for the rest of her life. It's 19 at the clock, and it's the time for the monster to appear. He tells Hyunseung that tonight can be even more dangerous than last night. He asks everyone if they are ready, and they will proceed according to the plan.